Yes, thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Thank you so much, Mr. Talha Sajid. Uh, Good afternoon to all of our guest speakers and all participants of this webinar. My name is Ejad Akbar. I'm from GPF. I'm joining here to see, joining you here as a moderator of this webinar today. As you know, Green Professional Forum was formed with the main objective of serving the Pakistan professionals and benefiting them by sharing knowledge and expertise in various activities which could add value in their professions. So you guys, please feel free to connect us via website, LinkedIn, or other social media pages for our forthcoming events. The GPF team would like to extend warm welcome to all the participants, and I would like to present Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir, our key speaker of this webinar. Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir, a professional and specialized qualification in English literature and linguistics, having an MPhil degree in applied linguistics, he bears knowledge, he bears worldwide experience in different universities, and currently he's working in English department in Muhammad Al-Mana College of Medical Sciences since last 10 years. He's also coaching students for IELTS from last 10 years. Moreover, he has composed English dictionary into Urdu named as Qaumi Angrezi Urdu Lugat, and that has been published by Namal Islamabad. Welcome once again. Hope that all the participants will get benefit from this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I would like to call Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir. Please, Mr. Muhammad Ameen, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Dear participants, I really welcome you from the bottom of my heart that you spared some time to join this webinar. Definitely, we are here to learn from each other. As you know, the topic of my here webinar is the importance of questioning in developing students' critical thinking. As you know, to develop students' critical thinking is so vast topic, and I try to narrow it with the help of one thing, that is the questioning. So today we will have to try to understand the importance of questioning in developing students' critical thinking. And what are our learning outcome? In this workshop, participants will enable to use questioning to enhance teaching and learning in the classroom, use Socratic questions, Bloom's taxonomy, and Christenbury and Kelly model to develop deeper forms of thinking. Apply the key elements of effective questioning to develop students' critical thinking. So these are our outcomes. So first and foremost, my dear participants, I would like to request you to please fill in KWL chart. look at the topic and fill in the chart, and you can share your views here in the chat box. Look at the topic, the importance of questioning in developing students' critical thinking. This is the topic. In the light of this topic, you will have to fill in the chart. Look at the topic and fill in the chart. KWL chart. Here K means what I know, and W means what I want to know, and L means what I have learned. So KWL chart, what I know, what I want to know, and what I have learned. So with the help of this chart, we can come to know about the topic and what my dear participants know already, and what they want to know, and in the end, what they have learned. So most of the participants are here, so experienced teachers, they already know about the topic, and what they want to know is really should be interesting one if they share their views and ideas here with me, what they want to know more here related to the topic. Chatting box. In your chatting box, you can mention Yasarov says a question is of knowledge. Okay. Muhammad Bakr Hussain says question complete are concepts. Okay. I know that without question, one can't achieve the best of our learning. Okay. Fine. So good. So many participants have mentioned their views about question. Okay, fine. So I just want to know what I want to know, about the question, what you want to know further here. Fine. Okay. Question is best part of learning. MPhil choice about this one. Okay. Next. Okay, class. KWL chart should be utilized in the class. In this way, we come to know about the students, what they know and what they want to know. With the help of this chart, we can continue our lecture, and we come to know that what our students want from us. So here is, people have mentioned about the question. My question is, why do we ask questions? Why do we ask questions? What does critical thinking mean? what types of questions develop students' critical thinking and reasoning? Do you mindfully use questions as formative and summative assessments? If so, how? So everybody knows that questions are important. So why do we ask questions? What the reason behind asking question? Why do we ask questions? Definitely we ask questions to seek information, to assess our students, to engage our students, okay, to check someone's knowledge, to enhance, okay, to clear doubts, okay, to clear our concepts about a particular subject. Fine, good. Fine. So we all know the concept of asking questions. So what does critical thinking mean? And what type of questions that can help us to have the critical thinking of our students? What questions can develop our students' critical thinking class? Okay, if we know that questions are important, we ask the question to assess students, to engage them. But the question is, what type of questions are important to develop students' critical thinking? Concept checking questions. Okay. Conceptual questions. Okay. Fine. Now the question is, when you ask question, do we mindfully ask questions? Do we understand that these questions is related to formative assessment or summative assessment? Yes, this is very important to ask the question whether you are mindful or not. Are the questions are just the routine questions? Are you questioning mindfully? Yes. Yes, Mr. Bashir, you are absolutely right. We need to be mindful. Yes. Open-mindedness, okay. Mindful thinking, okay. Fine. Very good. Shazad Balal says questionings that let the students think out of. Okay, good. Good. A class now, please pay attention to these pictures. What can you infer from the pictures? You find here 3 pictures. One is related to coal. They are burning. The second picture here is related to coals that are completely dead. And third picture is related to sculpture and the art of sculpturing. These are three pictures. And with the help of three pictures, I would try to proceed my lecture here. So keep in mind the topic and try to infer and draw some conclusion from these pictures. What does it mean when coals are burning and coals are dead and you find the sculpture here? So these are the pictures that tell us something. What are those things we will have to understand? The philosophy is underlying, okay. Okay, so Bashir is showing that, yes, dead coals means no thinking, okay, good. Which are equally important, Mr. Shazad says, okay. Fine. Okay, class, you are absolutely right here. Your thinking is really worth appreciating. I think you have been thinking on thinking. You have been thinking on thinking. And look at the picture here is the coal that are burning, class. You see little children. They are so enthusiastic. They have the questions in their mind. And their minds are like the burning coals. They have energy, potential. And with the help of their energy and potential, you come to know that they ask questions again and again. Their questions are so critical one. And what happens when their questions are not addressed properly, when they are not listened to in a good way? Those burning questions, like coals, become so dead. They stop thinking. When they move to college, when they move to higher classes, there are no questions from their side. But if we have to address their questions, if we answer to their questions properly, and we prepare our lectures, and definitely those questions would be addressed properly. When the questions are addressed properly, students are satisfied, they burn, they glow, they have energy. Even then, when you find hair coals that are dead, they have the energy. They have the energy, but that energy should be utilized only and only when we have the question, and your question would be the light that will burn that dead coal. And look at the other picture. You see here the sculpture. You see the statue. And you know what happens? The stone is there, and the sculptor just carves the stone, and from within the stone you find a beautiful picture. You find a beautiful statue. You find such a picture that is worth seeing and worth appreciating. My question is, if a stone has a beautiful picture inside and a sculptor does not take the picture from outside and put there in the stone, no. So why teachers don't build a good student from within a student? If student is there, if sculpture can be made and sculptor can do so, why not the teacher? Teacher can also make a student a very good student and excellent students. Okay, class. After this, we shall have to understand what critical thinking is. Critical thinking is a term we often use in our language, and the very word that is important one, that is the critical thinking. Everybody knows about thinking. It's a mental exploration. There is something in your mind and you try to explore with the help of your experience, with the help of your knowledge, with the help of your observation. And when you analyze things, that type of analysis is your critical thinking. So critical thinking occurs when students are analyzing and evaluating, interpreting, or synthesizing information and applying creative thoughts to form an argument. So when they utilize their mind, they are so sagacious to think about the things, and then they come to know the conclusion, they give the argument, and that type of thing is the critical thinking. Okay, cool. My dear participants, what types of questions to develop critical thinkers? Here are 4 types of questions. Out of these 4 types of questions, there is one question that is not so effective in developing critical thinking: close-ended question, open-ended questions, and funnel questions, probing questions. These are 4 types of questions that are helpful in developing students' critical thinking. Which one of these is not effective in developing critical thinking? Which question is not so effective, class? Yes. Close-ended question. Aisha says funnel questions. Anyone else? Yes, close-ended questions do not allow students to reach critical thinking, in my opinion. Okay, good. Fine. Ms. Khan says no, not funnel question. In closed questions, the students is bound to a short knowledge. Okay. Yes, class. Here the close-ended questions. Yes, your opinion is absolutely right when you say that close-ended questions actually are not so effective in developing critical thinking, because close-ended questions are related to yes-no questions. When you say, do you understand my lecture? Your students would say yes. And you cannot assess them in a good way when you have close-ended question. Are you listening to me? They will say, yes, we are listening to you. So when you have close-ended question, means yes, no question, those yes, no questions will not be helpful to develop students' critical thinking. So yes, when you have open-ended question, your open-ended questions will help you to know and understand where your students stand and what they want to know more and more. And you can assess them in a good way, and you can, for example, you say, would you please tell me something about the topic, about the conclusion? So when you have especially WH questions, those open-ended questions are helpful to develop students' critical thinking. Okay, and somebody says that the funnel questions, keep in mind, funnel questions actually start with question with a narrow focus. then transition to broad and open detailed type of question, from the narrow to the open-ended questions that are funnel questions. And when you find the probing questions are actually designed to encourage deep thought about a specific topic. So those are probing questions. These are three types of questions that are so helpful in developing students' critical thinking. Here is a little bit detail about the closed questions. They are yes, no questions. Okay, do you learn English? Is English a difficult language? So when you have such type of question, they have answers only yes and no, and such questions are not so effective in developing students' critical thinking. Yes, open-ended questions are WH questions are so important to develop students' critical thinking. Open-ended questions. And in open-ended questions, you have what, who, where, when, how, and why. Out of these questions, which question is the most difficult one? What question, who, where, when, how, and why? So what type of question is the most difficult one out of these WH questions? Yes, please. Yes. Why is the most difficult question? Why is the most difficult question? Okay. Why is the most difficult question? Okay. Now my question is why is the most difficult question? If why is the difficult question, then my question is why is the most difficult question? Yes, why is the most difficult question? Why demands reason. Okay. Definitely your research starts from the very question, that is why the apple fell down, why it did not go up. Why is the most difficult question? Because why has the domain of philosophy. Why has the domain of philosophy? So when you have to find out the solution to that type of philosophy, definitely you research, and then you invite many things, you knock at the door of your mind, and then you try to find out the solution to the problem. Okay. The funnel questions are actually, my dear participants, the methods that we start the question with a narrow focus, then transition to broad and open detailed type of questions. And probing questions are designed to encourage a deep thought about a specific topic. How did you come to this conclusion? What do you think is at the root of the problem? So when you have such type of questions, that questions are called probing questions, and these probing questions need a deep thought about a specific topic. Yes, question. Questioning technique, class, this is very important. Remember, my dear participant, T and T. Remember T and T. What is T and T? Telling is not teaching. Telling is not teaching. T and T, telling is not teaching. You tell a story. You enter the classroom and you just tell the story. Your storytelling is not teaching. I will prove it this one in our next slides. Okay. So you should not tell the story to your students. Telling is not teaching. Yes, in questioning technique, one important thing is question the question. Question the question. When you question the question, you try to understand the importance of your question, and you are so mindful. You are not unmindful. Why do you ask that question? You should question the question. What's the first question you should ask? Why do you ask the question? Why is the question important? Which of your questions turned out to be the most useful one? So this indicates that you are asking the questions mindfully. So what are other questioning techniques? Ask your well-worded questions, class. It should not be ambiguous. It should be clear. Start with simple questions and progress to more challenging questions. Provide students with adequate time to think. Practice gender equality if there is co-education. Boys and girls both are there in the class, so you should keep in mind the equality of gender. Practice calling on all students and follow up with explain, tell me more, like this one. Give the same amount of wait time. If the question related to critical thinking, definitely you will have to give time to your students. They will think about that question to answer. Actively involve as many students as possible. It does not mean that there are only 2 or 3 shining students in the class and you ask only those shining students and not the other ones. No, you will have to involve all other students actively. Careful your responses. Your feedback is very important. Your feedback is very important. If you don't give your feedback, so your question would be useless. Your feedback is very important. Okay, use a strong praise sparingly. You should applaud your student. You should mention your student in such good words that the students feel happy. Avoid same student answering. If the same student is answering, then avoid that one. Yes, class, this is very important for critical thinking because formative and summative assessments. In your formative assessment and your summative assessments, these two things are so important. Formative assessment is throughout the class, is ongoing, and your summative assessment is at the end or at the conclusion. Your class discussion is under formative assessment, clicker questions, your homework, and your formative assessment is the low stakes. Yes, summative assessment is the high stakes. Immediate feedback, when we have formative assessment, in formative assessment, the feedback is immediate, and delayed feedback there in summative assessment. Teacher-supported formative assessment and summative assessment is actually independently performed. So when you find pencil paper test, exams, that would be your summative assessment. And standardized tests are included in your summative assessment. Final presentation projects are included in your summative assessment. And summative assessment, high stakes, full marks, 100% marks, sometimes from out of 100, 80 to 90% marks are there in summative assessment. So high stakes are there under summative assessment. So when you ask the question, class, in the class that is related to formative assessment, and when you ask the question in the end of the class or in the end of the test, in the end of the semester, in your final exam, in your midterm exams, those questions are summative assessment. Okay, so here, Socratic questions to stimulate critical thinking. So what are Socratic questions? I mentioned 3 questions that are helpful to create critical thinking. What exactly does this mean? The questions, how does this relate to what we have been talking about? Can you give me an example? If such type of questions are asked in your assessment, in your formative assessment, in your summative assessment, then these questions are helpful to develop students' critical thinking. Yes, without Bloom's taxonomy, you know that your assessment is not complete, your critical thinking is very difficult, such type of questions that are related to remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So when you have the question just related to define something or list something or memorize and repeat, so these are the questions and these are the verbs that are not helpful to develop students' critical thinking. These are lower level questions. Yes, if you have to apply use information in new situations, execute, implement, solve, and demonstrate. If you use such type of words in your question, so you can create your students' critical thinking and related to then analyze and evaluate, then create. So these are the stages according to Bloom's taxonomy that you will have to move from remembering to the creating. So these are the verbs that are helpful to create students' critical thinking. Okay. This is the model class. This is very important. And with the help of this model, we will have to do something. This is the model, a model of questioning. So here is the Christenberry and Kelly model. He says that when you have the exams, assessment, you should have text, subject matter, and reader personal response, and then your world external environment. So with the help of this, we can create the questions. Here is one specimen I have just given. You find here the circles, these are the areas, and these are the questions. So these are questions are related to the medicine, related to the science. I skip this one. I move towards one that we often know about, the thirsty crow. Everybody knows about the thirsty crow. This is the story class. If we teach our student this story in a real way, really, we can understand life. We can understand critical thinking. So here is the model. You have the story. What is the subject matter related to the story? You should have the question here. Personal response. In the light of story, what should be the personal response question here? External environment here. Subject matter and personal response, and then subject matter and external environment, and then personal response and external environment, and then subject matter, personal response, and external environment. This is the circle questioning. This is the area. If we apply this one along with other models, we can develop our students' critical thinking. So we don't have time. Actually, it's just a webinar and not like the workshop, that in the workshop we will have to do something here. So here is the answer, subject matter. Okay, what is the main idea of the story? Personal response. Your question should be, describe a problem that you had and steps taken to solve it. So with the help of that story, it would be helpful for the students. They will think about their problem and the steps taken to solve it. And what's external environment? In the light of the story, what should we do to seek water? Okay, reach our destination. So to reach our destination, this story tells us how to reach the destination, how to seek water. Here, to seek water does not simply water. Here is the destination, the destination. So how to reach the destination? This story tells us how to reach the destination, how to find the goal. And then if you have subject matter and personal responses, how would you create the question? The crow flew here and there in search of water, in search of water. So this is the text. Subject matter, do you do research to find the solution to the problem rather than complaining? We just complain. We don't try to find the solution. If so, how? So this is the question we can create with the help of that type of story and model. The other is subject matter and external environment. After a long search, the crow found a pot with some water, but he was unable to drink. This is the story. What's the question? How nature helps people when they struggle. So this, all these things are the part of story, but those things help us to create questions, such questions that are so important to create students' critical thinking. And look at next enriched question, personal response and external environment. If you are a near miss, you are just going to complete your mission. You are so successful, but at the very time you cannot reach your success. What will you do? What will you do? What alternative like the pebbles will you use to be so successful? If you face such a problem as the bird faced in the story, what will you do? So these are the model questions in the light of circle models. Yes, class, here is, in the end, I would say here, the Holy Quran about the critical thinking. The Holy Quran invites us, give us invitation about critical thinking and reasoning. The Holy Quran harshly criticizes the inactivity of a vegetative, a passive existence that lacks critical thinking and cognition, your perception and reasoning. And here are you, when you find such type of thinking, you see in surah number 7 and verse number 179, surah number 8 and verse number 22, and surah number 10 and verse number. So these are, when you open the Holy Quran seems to invite us to seek critical thinking. But definitely after Holy Quran, what the Holy Prophet says about sayings of the Holy Prophet, perpetual peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his voice, the cure for ignorance is to question. If you want to remove your ignorance, if you want to say goodbye to your ignorance, if you want to divorce your ignorance, the Holy Prophet says the only way is to question. You should question and your ignorance will be removed. So class, where there is proper questioning, there is critical thinking. Let me conclude this one, okay? Where there is proper questioning, there is critical thinking. And we should not be unmindful while questioning, okay? The saying of the Holy Prophet here, perpetual peace be upon him, class. In the end, I would like to mention here, question is the key to the treasure of knowledge. These are the remarks. These are the holy words of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, perpetual peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You look at the pictures. If there is the book, if there are words, there are pages, and there are no keys of questions. So these pages are useless. The book is useless. The lecture is useless. So there should be the question, and each and every question should be a key that to open the door of knowledge, to open the door of heaven. Okay, I try to finish it as early as possible. So after this, if you have any question, please, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir. Now we would like to move towards question and answer, and over to Mr. Khalid Iqbal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ijaz. Yes, Thank you for the speaker for the very comprehensive webinar and the lecture. Yes, we have some questions. Number one, how can we increase the desire of questioning in the students? Sir.
Yes, this is really very good question to increase the desire of questioning in students. When you enter the class and you treat the students in such a way that you create so friendly atmosphere, you tell the students and the students feel encouraged. They know that our teacher will respond us. Our teacher will help us in understanding our questioning. So it is totally depends on the teacher, his behavior, his attitude towards the student. And when students feel so comfortable in the class, he raises question. And when the teacher snubs the students, when the teacher sways to a student, this is so silly question. So what happens next time? Students stop asking questions. So it depends only the teacher and his attitude towards the teacher. The more the teacher good towards his student, the more the question he will have from his student.
Yes, thank you,
Any
sir.
other
The
question?
next, yes, next
please.
question is, which type of questions produce more critical thinking? MCQs or essay type questions?
Choice questions or essay type questions. In multiple choice questions, it depends on the stem of the questions, and it depends on the options of the question. If the options are very near 90-20, 90-20, then they are so successful. But if the options are not so near, so MCQs questions are not helpful. Then subjective questions are helpful. Objective questions, to create an objective question is not an easy task. This is a difficult one. Okay, if you create the questions that are related to MCQs, they can also help us to build students critical thinking, but it depends on the stem of the question and options of the question. That should be very near to each other. And students think again and again what type of option is correct. A option seems correct. B option also seems correct. So at that time, he thinks again and again, again and again. So that type of questions definitely will be helpful to create students' critical thinking. Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. The next question is, how can we avoid biasing in formative assessment?
Informative assessment, as in my lecture, I mentioned that we should treat the students equally. We should treat the students equally. And you are a teacher, and your students are not only your students. Your students are your offspring, are your own children. When you treat them, you should not consider them the students. You should consider them your own offspring, your own children. So at that very time, this is really, really very important for the teacher. He should be a teacher like, and not the person who favors one person and who does not favor the other person. A teacher is a teacher. When you say a teacher, it means that he is so fair with each and every student. He does not play with the future of the student. He knows very well that each and every mark is actually the future of the student. Each and every word uttered by the teacher is actually the future of the student. He will never adopt such type of thinking. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The second last question is, what is difference between critical thinking and active learning?
Yes, really, this is a very good question. Critical thinking and active learning. So active learning is actually the result of critical thinking. When students are learning actively, then you come to know this is the result of critical thinking. So one is the way, the other is the result. So when you so active learning happens only and only when there are critical thinking. So active learning is the result of critical thinking actually. If active learning is not there, it means there is no critical thinking. If critical thinking is there, it means active learning is happening there. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. This is the last question. How do we develop the right path or a framework towards the proper questioning? Please answer this question regarding the students who are doing their research work, please.
Yes, you know, in the research work, your research depends on your thesis statement, and your thesis statement depends on your knowledge, your area, because you have to prove that type of your thesis statement. Okay, if your thesis statement is so powerful, you would have the ability to prove that type of your thesis statement, your question developed by you, to have more and more information, and your reader come to know your whole thesis on the basis of your thesis statement, on the basis of the question that you raised. The question raised by you are so important. That's why it said that you have to take much time to develop your question statement, your questions that are so helpful to develop your research. And in this way, what happens, your reader are so happy to find out even the help of that thesis statement and questions. They move towards your thesis, the whole thesis that lies in your question statement. Okay, and the question statement, definitely you will have to reach that type of statement only and only when you have knowledge, more and more knowledge, and that knowledge invites you to develop that type of question statement. So this is very important. Yes.
So much. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we have a lot of questions, but we did short of time. Please, I will request my all of attendees that you can visit our GPF website, and your answers will be posted there. Thank you for joining us. Please hand over to Mr. Ijaz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid and Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir. Subhanallah, a very captivating presentation today. Such a great help. Such a great help for the students as for the professionals. It has been an honor for having you here in our webinar. Many thanks to our honorable speaker, Mr. Muhammad Ameen Tahir, for practical tips and tricks on developing critical thinking of the students. And your valuable time out of your busy schedule means a lot to us. Respected audience, we would love to have your valuable feedback. You are directed to a quick link feedback poll that will take less than 2 minutes. So please go ahead and please give your valuable feedback over there. Thank you so much. I would like to thank you all for being part of this webinar, and we hope that the participants have learned a lot from our valuable speaker. Thank you once again, and we wish you a nice weekend.